Something's wrong with that kid. Kevin Spencer. His head don't work, it never did. Kevin Spencer. You better not cross his path. Kevin Spencer. He's a chain-smoking alcoholic sociopath. Kevin was real irritable lately. Because he'd been in the joint so long, he was feeling out of touch with life. Kevin missed the intoxicating smell of a bag of solvents and the pretty banging noise that happened when he smashed parking meters with a tire iron. Kevin was in a rut, and it was starting to show.
Frankly, Kevin, I'm growing concerned. I thought we'd been making progress, but lately you've been very withdrawn. Can't you try to open up and let me help you?
Kevin tried opening up with a volley of stationery supplies.
I'm sorry, Kevin, but until we make some kind of breakthrough, your violent temper has made it necessary for me to send you to...
Kevin had heard rumors and he was frightened. Ward 5 hadn't always been a hospital. For a long time, it had been a convent and then a prison. No one liked to talk about the mysteriously large platform with the hole in the middle that was in the courtyard, or the phony wall in the basement where the nuns used to hide their illegitimate children. Ward 5 was the ward where they sent you if you were completely untreatable, and it took up the whole third floor.
Spencer, word is they're sending your kid to Ward 5.
Ward 5? A way to embarrass the family, you effing little bastard. They're gonna make short work of him. They're gonna kill you, boy.
The guards took Kevin onto an elevator and put tape around his hands.
That's so you don't hurt yourself.
Kevin hadn't been planning on hurting himself and didn't think he could do much damage with his fingers anyway. At least not as much damage as he could with his hands taped up like this.
Boy, this one's worse than his old man.
While he was unconscious, Kevin dreamed about his friend, Alan the Magic Goose.
You're losing your touch, idiot boy. You weren't even watching your back. Now Alan's got some stuff to do, so get back to your twisted version of reality.
When Kevin woke up, he didn't much like what he saw. The place made the regular mental ward look like a field trip to the library. There was a guy chewing through his own arm, another guy urinating on his own bed, and there was even another guy trying to build an ark so he wouldn't die with all the other crazy people who were going to burn in hell. Finally, Kevin found a quiet corner where he could get as much of his head together as possible, given his incomplete genetic makeup. Kevin didn't much like the thought of spending the rest of his life in the nut house until he died a miserable and lonely death. He was even more scared because he'd heard that people in Ward 5 couldn't have visitors, and that meant his mom wouldn't be able to smuggle him contraband cough syrup and smokes. Kevin was walking home from his probation officers and decided to take a shortcut along the railway track. As he came around the corner, he found something that looked familiar. It was the shattered remains of Gus Jones, another kid in his class. Gus had been run over by the 1 o'clock express. Kevin felt kind of weird about this because he'd just seen Gus earlier that day in math class.
If a train leaves the station at 8 a.m. at 100 miles per hour and the conductor eats a bran cereal at 7:30 a.m., what will the conductor's relative speed be if he is running 30 miles per hour to the washroom at the back of the train?
Mrs. Kilborn, my parents say learning math is satanic.
Very well then, on your way.
The last time anyone saw Gus, he was headed towards the railway tracks, wearing his CD player and headset.
Hey, it's a recording of all my favorite train sounds.
There wasn't much left of Gus now, but by a stroke of luck, the CD player was still in pawnable condition. Kevin was always looking for something to take to the local pawn shop, like the stop sign outside the retirement home and Uncle Mike's dialysis machine. He figured the CD player ought to put him ahead a few $100. Kevin waited as Al haggled with another customer.
How can you call this a family pawn shop with all these weapons and pornography?
Hey, the Mansons were a family, weren't they? Listen, Father, either you're buying the inflatable cocktail waitress or you're not.
I don't know. I was going to use this money to buy new fire extinguishers for the church, but she's an awfully pretty girl. It's a deal. So, I'd like to sell these war medals, okay?
Are they stolen?
No way, dude. I was totally a veteran of the Franco-Prussian War.
Then it was Kevin's turn, and he showed Al the CD player.
Is it stolen?
Kevin was pretty proud of himself because this was the first thing he'd ever pawned that wasn't stolen. He told the man that he'd found it beside the horribly dismembered corpse of one of his classmates.
Cool, I'll give you $70.
Kevin figured he was being ripped off, but he wanted the money, so he took the $70 and went to the drugstore. Kevin wasn't used to having that much scratch lying around, so he decided to celebrate by buying a Texas Mickey of lemon gin, 2 cartons of smokes, and a 3-day bender. Then he went to the zoo. The zoo was closed, but that wasn't the kind of thing that got in Kevin's way. At first he thought the smell would be a problem, but the monkeys didn't seem too bothered by it. A few days later, the police raided Al's pawn shop.
You are under arrest for knowingly selling stolen merchandise.
Damn you, 60 Minutes, and damn you, Mike Wallace.
When the police traced the serial number on the CD player, they soon found out it belonged to Gus Jones, the boy who'd been reported missing.
I bought it from that little freak Kevin Spencer. You guys have his address?
When the cops arrived at Kevin's house, Percy was already in a bad mood because he'd run out of matches and got his head stuck in the toaster oven while trying to light a smoke. So he aimed to deal with the uninvited guests right quick.
I was at the movies all night. I don't know nothing about no liquor store robbery.
We'll come back for that tomorrow night. Now, we understand you might be involved in the disappearance of a missing boy.
Percy didn't know what they were talking about, but since he'd had so many blackouts, he figured he'd better play it safe. So he bounced a beer bottle off the cop's head and slammed the doorknob into his groin. Kevin was walking off the tail end of his bender and thinking about all the things in his life that made him happy. The way cold tiles feel against your face after passing out in a public washroom. Or the way his mom would drool nostalgically when she saw clowns giving away balloons at the gas station. But the thing that made Kevin the happiest was coming home to find the police beating the old man on the lawn.
Use the mace on him. It's so cute the way it makes his face crinkle.
Hey, you stupid pigs! There's Kevin Spencer, the kid I bought the CD player from!
Kevin led the police to the boy's body, which had been picked clean by vultures and vermin. After he told the police what happened, they notified the boy's parents.
Cheer up. The train killed your boy. That means I ain't gotta go back to jail. But with a happy ending. Hey, give me a lift back to town, will ya?
It was a full day for Kevin, so he and the old man headed off to catch last call at the strip club and walked away in the dying light of a burned-down church. Because Kevin was so violent, he'd been placed in Ward 5 of the mental hospital. Kevin wasn't too happy about it. He wasn't afraid of the other patients, but because they were all violent lunatics, he didn't feel special anymore.
Hey kid, my name's Bull. I used to shoot heroin, but then I got in a car accident and I lost my arm. So that I didn't have an arm anymore to inject heroin into, so I had to use my legs. But then I got gangrene and I lost them too.
Kevin wasn't really in the mood to listen to some old junkie pissing and moaning about his problems. But because his hands were taped, he couldn't even give him the finger.
I have a plan that'll get us out of here, but it's risky. You afraid of dying, kid?
It was Percy Spencer's favorite day. government check day. The old man's benefits had run out long ago, and even the welfare department refused to pay him anymore. But just because the government stopped sending checks didn't mean Kevin and the old man couldn't lay their hands on a few.
Give me the coat hanger, boy.
Kevin and his dad thought this was the best job in the world because you got paid every few minutes.
Gum. You try the next house.
The system wasn't perfect, and sometimes they'd sneak the wire into the house of someone who was still at home. After a while, Kevin got bored and told the old man they should head to the cash mart and get the money.
Just one more.
Suddenly, the old man felt 10,000 volts charged through his body, and he lost control of all his bodily functions, just like last summer's corn roast picnic. Then Percy found himself looking down at his own body. He was having an out-of-body experience, floating in a bizarre netherworld. It was the most frightening thing he'd ever experienced since the time he was on a Greyhound bus toilet when it hit a pothole.
Baby, you've been in a coma for 3 months. But don't worry, I saved your beer. It was only half finished.
Kevin's old man hadn't been sober in 25 years. Now, without meaning to, he'd spent 3 months without being cranked up on booze or drugs.
That's strange. I seem to be starting and ending sentences, and my short-term memory's back.
And you've lost weight. You're as sexy as Henry Winkler.
Kevin had never seen his dad sober and not smoking, so he was still kind of wary of the whole thing.
I've wasted years.
Jeez Louise. Quit wasting it, idiot. You ain't the only one with a drinking problem. You're not thinking straight. Your whole family's been alcoholics for generations. It's a tradition.
Being clean and sober was starting to cause the old man lots of grief, and that was fine with him.
Couldn't help but notice, but you're not drinking, Percy.
That would violate my parole, just like you guys are doing.
Backstabbing son of a bitch. God help you next time you're in the joint. We'll carve up your ass.
At least I have a clear conscience. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000.
Percy took the reward money and bought a suit, tie, and briefcase and went off to start his new job at the slaughterhouse. Percy even started doing charity work. Every week, he'd bring a jar of bull testicles to the orphan's home.
Go start the car, son.
Kevin pulled out a Slim Jim to break into the car.
What you doing, you silly youngster? You don't have to break in. I bought the car.
Kevin was in shock. Something just wasn't right about all this. That's when the courier showed up.
Mr. Spencer, because of the wonderful things you've been doing with your testicles, you've been invited to receive a humanitarian award.
The day of the award ceremony was the strangest day of Kevin's life. The only time he'd ever been to City Hall was to apply for a pardon. Now he was watching the old man get an award, and it didn't seem fair. After all, Mom was the only person he knew who could snore and burp at the same time, but she wasn't getting any recognition.
It's an honor and a privilege to present all these fine humanitarians awards for their good service. As a surprise in their honor, they will all be receiving communion from none other than Cardinal O'Leary.
As the TV cameras rolled, Percy got on his knees center stage, ate a communion wafer, and drank some Sacramento wine.
recognition for your generosity in offering your testicles to needy children.
Kevin noticed the old man hadn't stopped drinking the wine yet.
Okay, boy, you're not the only thirsty humanitarian.
Get your own damn booth, big hat.
The old man didn't much care for anyone trying to hone in on his booze, even if it was Cardinal O'Leary. He figured he'd teach Godboy a thing or two and sucker punched him in the stomach.
I don't think so, you inbred freak.
My Percy, he's back to his old self. Get him, baby.
Kevin realized his dad was normal again, and that was good news. Taking a swing at the Cardinal wasn't real good thinking because that meant Dad was headed back to prison, where Charlie and the other guys he'd squealed on were waiting to give him a non-consensual prostate exam. Kevin figured that was good news, because when you're a sociopath, incapable of feeling any emotion, all news is pretty much the same anyways. Kevin and his dad had been spending a lot of quality time together because their cells were only 20 feet apart. They were both in the joint because they'd broken into a neighbor's garage to rip off some empties and decided to steal the car because it was already running. On their way home, Kevin had gotten so cranked on bad Mexican vodka, he thought he saw two bridges, which wouldn't have been so bad, except he picked the wrong one. The cops would have thrown the book at him if his car hadn't landed on a smuggling boat carrying a cargo of uncut Peruvian black hashish. Because they caught the smuggler, the cops took it easy on Kevin and his old man and gave them time served, plus a mandatory visit to a substance abuse day seminar. This seemed like a sweet deal, but Kevin and his dad were alcoholic chain smokers, so even the 3 days in holding cells still caused horrible DTs and withdrawals. The hash smuggler, on the other hand, was the only one not suffering any symptoms.
Excuse me. I demand a phone call and some more nachos.
As soon as they were released, they were sent to the drug seminar.
As part of Health Education Week and in conjunction with the good people at Blind Bastard Scotch Whiskey, we're going to show you the scourge of society today, drugs.
Isn't liquor a drug?
Not exactly, sort of. Never mind. Ladies and gentlemen, these are drugs.
He's not lying. They sure are.
This is the part of the seminar where you learn just what kind of damage drugs do to your body. Welcome to the Liver Hall of Fame.
Kevin looked at all the impressive livers. He didn't know who Hunter S. Thompson was, but he hoped that someday he'd have a famous liver just like his.
Pay attention, people. This is your brain. And this is your brain on drugs. Get it?
I don't get it. Here, boy, he did it wrong. This is really your brain on drugs.
Now you're going to find out the real face of drug abuse. You'll meet a man who hit rock bottom and ruined his life. Meet Bill X.
I was so addicted to crack cocaine that I used to have sex with men just to support my habit.
You're a lying effing tool. Who'd have sex with a fat pig like you?
Hey, you bastard, I was the hottest meat on the east side.
East side of my ass, maybe.
You're dead, you mofo. Question here. I have sex with men because I enjoy it. Does that mean I'm a high risk for drug abuse?
Kevin's dad and the addict duked it out, and the noise could be heard all through the community center, even next door to Stop Smoking Clinic.
You can stop smoking today. And to prove it, let's meet a couple of success stories right now.
Lights out, prick.
You and your rotten kid, get out of here. I've signed your probation papers, now get out.
Percy was off to celebrate his probation by finding some way of breaking it. But Kevin was already gone. He'd grabbed the rest of the Percodance from the beginning of the presentation and had stolen Timothy Leary's liver to see if he could squeeze anything good out of it. Bull was an armless, legless heroin addict who'd met Kevin in Ward 5. He'd lost his limbs because of gangrene and now could only get around by pulling himself on an old skateboard. It was all the government health insurance could afford.
I told you, I have a plan to get us out of here, and I'm serious, no fooling. First you go to the elevator, and then when the security guard comes up with the food, you pretend you're sick. And I'll hide behind the curtains, and then when he comes in, I'll bump him over the head with my big cock, and we'll see what happens, okay?
Kevin tried to listen to Bull's escape plan, but it sounded sort of complicated, and years of substance abuse didn't help his attention span. So instead, he came up with an escape plan of his own. He kicked Bull's skateboard really hard so that it rolled through the third-floor window, leaving a huge opening. Then he took all the tape from the patient's hands and made a rope that allowed him to slide out the window to freedom. At least that's how it should have worked.
Hey, give us our tape back.
Kevin woke up and noticed something was different. His new cellmate was trying to eat his leg. Kevin wasn't sure what the hell was going on, but he didn't much like it, so he tried to run away. Crazy Billy was almost right on top of him when a loud noise rang out, and Billy fell to the ground screaming and holding his stomach. The guards must have heard Billy screaming because they'd come down to see what was going on and had shot him in the stomach with a rubber bullet. Then he and the other guard took turns introducing Kevin to their new prison-issue steel-toed boots. Right before Kevin blacked out, he got to thinking that the whole thing was the cannibal's fault. Kevin decided that when he got better, he was going to learn that dumb flesh-eating bastard a thing or two. He figured that ought to straighten things out.